Hello, I'm Gene Hall. Welcome to Voices of Agriculture here on RFD. We're coming to you from the Lone Star State of Texas, where the Trans-Texas Corridor was recently declared dead. That is, of course, a multi-billion-dollar and very controversial highway project. And as Mark Twain said, perhaps the reports of that death are greatly exaggerated. Our reporter Ed Wolf talked to some folks who have just that concern.
Leonard Cobb is a wheat and grain farmer from Bell County. His operation sits just outside Rogers, Texas, and in the middle of one of the proposed paths of the now defunct Trans-Texas Corridor. Even though the Texas Department of Transportation says the TTC is officially dead, Cobb is leery about their revised plans.
When you look at the plan that's out there, really nothing's really changed that much. Basically, they're saying 600 feet instead of 1,200 feet, but I don't know if anybody's ever walked off 600 feet somewhere, but that's still a pretty wide road. And it still divides and separates if it's no matter what the distance.
One of his big concerns is farms and ranches that will be divided by these new highways, taking away land value and much needed access from ag producers trying to make a living.
Everybody that's in farming, if you're farming enough to make a living, you're scattered and you have several farms in different locations, which uniquely makes that difference from any other business. You can't just relocate. You know, when you're doing business, you have to go and come sometimes several times a day. So you have to have that free access.
This is not just an agricultural problem. Paul and Madeline Opperman built the Texas Rose on their 6-acre homestead in Belton to provide entertainment for the local community and supplement their income during their retirement years. The prospect of seeing their dreams covered in concrete is unsettling, to say the least.
We have our life here. We built here in '74. We planned on staying here. All of that's going to be taken away. And when we're seniors, 66 and 63, you're asking an awful lot to have to rebuild again.
While they understand roads may need to be built to address the Lone Star State's exploding population and relieve already congested highways, the Oppermans believe the state's archaic eminent domain policies must be reformed in order to adequately protect landowners.
They need to revise all this to where if you want to come in and take someone's land and their home and their livelihood, which will be this Texas Rose on us, you need to really sit down with the people and talk to them and make it worth their while.
Reporting from Bell County, I'm Ed Wolf for Voices of Agriculture.
Here in Texas, our legislature meets for 140 days during the odd-numbered years on the calendar. Well, they're back in Austin now, and perhaps the most important issue, at least to rural Texans, is that of eminent domain reform. Mike Barnett, editor of Texas Agriculture Magazine, sat down with Lieutenant Governor David Dewhurst to discuss that issue.
Thank you, Governor Dewhurst, for joining us today.
Well, thank you.
Eminent domain is an important topic as we head into this session. Why do you think this issue resonates with Texans?
You know, in some cases, eminent domain is almost fighting words. I am a strong believer in private property rights. I own land in rural Texas. I own cattle, I own horses. And there's a role for eminent domain, but it needs to be done sparingly. It needs to be justified. And if it's used, the landowner needs to be fairly compensated.
Is it an issue that encompasses all Texans? Is it not just a rural or urban issue? Is it an issue that affects everyone?
Well, I think eminent domain affects everybody. You can be an urban landowner, you can be a rural landowner. So it's an issue which touches all of us here in Texas.
Do you agree with Texas Farm Bureau that eminent domain reform is long overdue?
Absolutely. I think the Kelo decision in 2005 was a straw which broke the camel's back. I think we need to act now. We acted in 2007, but the legislation was vetoed, and we're going to pass it again.
Thousands of entities have the power of eminent domain. Is that too many? Or do too many entities have that power?
You know, when we talk about thousands of entities here in Texas having the power of eminent domain, it scares me, just scares me. Now, one of the provisions in our bill that we passed last year, but was vetoed, gave the comptroller the obligation to go to do a study throughout the state and make a determination whether some entities who have eminent domain, whether or not that was justified or not. So to me, I think that number ought to be reduced.
Do you see a problem with passing a comprehensive bill this session?
I don't see any problem in passing out of the legislature a comprehensive bill that's fair on eminent domain. Now, we passed it out of my Senate 29-1. In the House, we had 125 votes for it. Regrettably, it was vetoed, but we're going to send it out of the Senate again early in the session.
What are the biggest obstacles you see to passing this legislation?
Well, there are a lot of parties involved with eminent domain. First of all, it's a complex issue. You got a lot of lawyers involved, and of course, that makes it more difficult. But seriously, we've got landowners involved, urban, rural. We've got folks involved in economic development. We've got local governments involved. So once again, we need to bring this whole coalition back together, get them behind this legislation, and pass it as we did last year. But go ahead and pass it again in 2009, out of the Senate, out of the House, and hopefully the governor will sign it.
What are the essential points that need to be in this legislation?
I think the basic essentials are that if an agency has eminent domain and they're trying to use it, it's got to be justified. It's got to be fair. We've got to have fair negotiations between the agency who has eminent domain and the landowner. So we have to have fair negotiations, and at the end of the day, there has to be adequate and just compensation to the landowner. I think those are at a minimum.
Is there a message you would like to personally deliver to Texas Farm Bureau members about eminent domain reform?
For years, I've been a proud member of the Farm Bureau. And to all my friends in the Farm Bureau, just know one thing, that I'm going to be working as hard as I can to pass the good legislation out again that once again changes and mandates fair negotiations between the agency who has eminent domain and the landowner, mandates adequate and just compensation, and I believe the House will do the same. And so, but we need all of your support once again so that not only can we get this passed out of the legislature, but it'll be signed into law.
Thank you, Governor Dewhurst.
Farmers and ranchers in this state and all others are known for innovation, for developing technology to solve problems, find easier ways of doing things. The American Farm Bureau Federation each year at their annual convention has a contest called the Farmer Idea Exchange to recognize some of those efforts. Ed Wolf at the convention caught up with 2 Texans who were recognized for their efforts.
Some might call innovative ideas the result of a quest of efficiency. On the other side of the fence is Donnie Smith, a cattleman and liquid feed manufacturer from San Saba, who calls his idea, a homemade tank gauge, the result of avoiding work.
Oh, we had one guy that worked for us. He was too big to climb up and down the ladder, and I was having to go up there and do it every day. And I got tired of having to go out there every day to check the tanks. So come up with this idea, and now we can just check it from the ground without having to get up in the air.
Smith's invention is so simple and innovative that it won the Most Usable Idea Award at the recent Farmer Idea Exchange at the American Farm Bureau Federation's annual meeting in San Antonio. His mechanical mind turned a 5-gallon bucket, a rope, 2 pulleys, and a piece of scrap iron into a tank gauge that's easy to use and anyone can build. The pulleys are welded to the top of the tank on a frame, and the bucket floats in the liquid. The scrap iron acts as a counterweight to show how much product is left in the tank.
Anybody can use it. Anybody's got any type of storage tank.
Not only is it safer than climbing a tank, it's very inexpensive.
Cost less than $10. You're probably looking about $2,000 for a regular tank gauge.
Smith wasn't the only Texan with an inventive streak. John McDowell of Shamrock also represented the Lone Star State at this national gathering of ideas. Necessity drove McDowell into developing a real-time kinematic tower.
We're in an area where there's not very many farms, and it's mainly ranch land, and we can not get any commercial operators to put up a system. So our only choice was to put our own up.
The technology is easy to understand. A satellite bounces a positioning signal down to an RTK tower. This tower adjusts the signal to sub-inch accuracies and then bounces the signal to the autopilot or auto steer on McDowell's tractors, combines, and cotton strippers.
It's very precise. Without an RTK system, you can go there the next day and you'll be 5 foot off your road. With this system, you can go back there next year and you'll be within an inch.
This cotton, wheat, and peanut producer said one advantage of his system is that it is built without concrete.
It's 75 foot tall, and we have it on a rented of farms, so we would be easy to take down if we had to do that. It was actually easy to pull up. We used 3 pickups to pull it up, all in one motion. It took a total of 2 minutes.
Finding better ways to operate was the driving force behind both inventions.
You know, if you see an opportunity, I figure out a way to do it.
Reporting from San Antonio, I'm Ed Wolf.
When we come back on Voices of Agriculture, a profile of the 3 outstanding young farmers and ranchers of Texas.
Are you a Texan? Are you a farmer or rancher? Is Texas agriculture important to you? Do you care about the future of rural Texas? Perhaps you're concerned about property rights, stewardship of the land, and the next generation of farm and ranch families. If any of this describes your thinking, then you belong in the Texas Farm Bureau. Make your voice heard in the organization that is the voice of Texas agriculture. Call your County Farm Bureau office or visit us on the web at www.txfb.org.
Each year, the Texas Farm Bureau recognizes the outstanding young farmer or rancher of Texas. Join us now as we visit the farms of the 3 finalists in that contest. Each year, the Texas Farm Bureau celebrates the future with the Outstanding Young Farmer Rancher Contest. Albert Einstein once said, "I never think of the future, it comes soon enough." It may have worked for Einstein, but thinking, planning, and dreaming of the future is part of this organization and second nature to this year's Young Farmer Rancher finalist. The words that describe these outstanding young producers are diversity, sustainability, innovation, and other superlatives. In our video profile, you will remember other words like family, support, and service to agriculture. Justin and Barbie Dower are from Carson County in Panhandle. Stephen and Jennifer Diebel hail from Victoria County near the city of Victoria. And Paul and Monica Menzenmeyer farm in Runnels County in the community of Rowena. Join us now as we meet and visit with this year's finalists on their farms.
Farming and ranching is what I've always wanted to do, and so we've been really blessed to be able to do that for these 10 years, and things haven't been exactly what I would have expected 10 years ago, but every year it's a new challenge, and that's something to look forward to, I guess, next year.
The one word that best describes the operation of Justin Dower is diversity. It plays a huge role in his farming success. Justin grew up not far from the place he and wife Barbie now call home. He was from a ranching family and Barbie from dairy folks. They both knew their path would someday lead back to the farm.
When I married him, I knew what I was getting into. I actually kind of liked that lifestyle and was happy to have the opportunity to be here.
Over the last decade, the Dowers have branched into several different kinds of agricultural production to maximize their opportunities.
That's what I've been doing with my corn. As soon as I harvest the corn, I try to roll in there and no-till some wheat behind that. Hopefully get it in early enough that you have a little bit of pasture for cattle in the winter, but that's kind of an iffy deal. And then after harvest the wheat in the spring, I'll try to leave that wheat stubble there, not plow it or anything, run a strip tail rig through it at some point the following winter, and then plant another spring crop a year from wheat harvest.
While most of his farming operations directly support his cattle herd, Justin says he definitely keeps his options open when it comes to production.
And most of our farming operation is really kind of geared to kind of back up our cow operation. We'll get done harvesting milo, we'll graze milo stocks, and we'll grow hay to feed our own cows, and we'll graze our calves on wheat. And then we've got this alfalfa deal, which like I said, we've mainly sold it for a cash crop, but every now and then you get some hay that's rained on or something nobody really wants, and our cows seem to eat it just fine.
It certainly has its challenges, starting out and trying to grow our operation. At the same time, we're growing our family. There's lots of uncertainties and challenges that go along with it, but you can't beat the lifestyle. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Justin finds time to give back to the industry, serving as chairman of the Texas Farm Bureau Beef Advisory Committee, and he has a seat on the Cattlemen's Beef Board. Other than the all-consuming duties of wife and mother, Barbie contributes to the operation by keeping the books, and she's no stranger to feeding the cows and other chores. And then there's the two little ranch hands on the dour spread.
Yeah, they're quite a bit of help. Jared, he's 5, fixing to be 6. He just started kindergarten. And our little girl Ashby is in 2nd grade, and she's 7. And they like to go feed with Mom and Dad and ride the tractor around a little bit, and I'll just be outside and messing around, I think is what they mainly like to do.
It's typically the son that comes home to the family farm, but girls can too. And we'd be sure happy to have her come back. She always talks about things that she would like to do, and she and her brother, and maybe they'll have the opportunity to work together someday on that.
Justin and Barbie Dower, the outstanding young farmer rancher finalist from Carson County.
We're involved in the beef cattle production pretty much from start to finish, other than the retail level or the packing house level. We run a cow-calf operation, a stocker operation, and we retain ownership on a pretty large percentage of our feeder calves also. So other than the beef side of it, you know, we do our own hay production. We do some limited wildlife opportunities to increase some revenue for the ranch.
Stephen works so hard, and it's really great to see people recognize that, you know, how much effort he's put into this over the years, and really making different changes and making improvements and trying to grow the operation.
Ask Stephen Diebel to define what he thinks is the most important aspect of his ranching operation, and he'll sum it up in one word:
sustainability. You really got to be cautious about the decisions that you make. There's so much instability in the atmosphere right now, and you've got to be able to make good marketing decisions and make good production decisions to be able to be sustainable.
The unprecedented drought of 2008 has put a lot of stress on all the Diebels.
That predictability part of the ranching industry that's just not there anymore. I think you've got to have a philosophy that's more conservative than it used to be, meaning you've got to be able to set yourself up to maintain yourself and sustain yourself through these dry times. The banking crisis that's going on now, I mean, growth for some, it's tough to do. And the ranching industry has probably faced more so of the challenges than anyone. I really believe that the beef cattle industry has some good times ahead.
And, says Jennifer Diebel, the tough times have been a teaching opportunity for the younger Diebels: Sarah, age 8, Julie, who's 5, and Clayton, 18 months old.
They've had to start realizing every time we go to do things, it's a choice. You know, we may not be doing this today because we need the money for something else. And I think it's been good for them to learn that life is about choices, and you may not always be able to do everything you want to do right then when you want to do it. But if you are patient and make the right choices, then down the line it'll pay off. The whole reason he does everything that he does is so that the family can continue to benefit and grow up here and have a place that will be here for generations to come.
The 5th-generation rancher has adapted to changing times by managing his herd with tracking and performance data, maximizing grazing options through land management, and irrigated hay production. Stephen serves on his County Farm Bureau board, as well as leadership positions with the Soil and Water District and Conservation Boards.
There's only one person that can change it, and that's yourself. Each and every person can make a difference, but you got to get involved. You can't sit back and say what if you're not involved. The ranching operation that we have, I mean, it's something that we take a lot of pride in. So it's not an occupation that you really get a whole lot of richness from, I guess you would say, from a monetary standpoint, but it's very rewarding to raise the kids in the fashion that we do.
All 3 of them, they really get a chance. You know, he may work strange hours and on weekends and late in the evenings, but we can come to him, and they can take turns going with him and really learning from him. And I think there are just so many learning opportunities that they have out here growing up that other children may not experience.
Stephen and Jennifer Diebel, the outstanding young farmer rancher finalist from Victoria County.
When I started farming, the first 3 years we didn't hardly make a crop, but luckily 2 of them I was still in high school and then in college, so I really wasn't married, didn't need a lot of money to live off of.
Living in an area that can get almost half its annual rainfall in a single storm, Paul Minzenmeyer has learned that efficiency is key when it comes to success.
You know, it's hard sometimes whenever there's work to be done and it's raining. I make it especially hard to never curse the rain because it will leave and it will stay gone for a long time.
In an operation that was much like his father's before him, almost exclusively depended on dryland acreage to grow his cotton and wheat crops, weather is definitely a major factor. His weren't the only crops facing hard times, he says. In fact, several farms in his county folded. He even tried his hand in other professions for a while, finishing his degree to become a CPA and working for a large firm in Midland.
I just tried to get the farming out of the blood, but couldn't. Had a pretty good career path laid out, I guess. Monica had been working and I'd been working, and then so we had 3 incomes, farming and then CPA and then her teaching, and then we came back and it was a dry year and we went from 3 incomes to 1 income, and it was the most variable. It kind of made you question what we did, but been a great living now, and there's nothing better than the farming lifestyle.
No, I knew what I was in for, and I really wanted it. I enjoyed the country lifestyle, the farming kind of life, so I picked it.
Today, the partnership continues. Paul and Monica share the decision-making on owned and leased cotton and wheat acreage. They are partners in a grain elevator in Nolan County and manage a small cattle herd. With moisture short in his region, Paul says he makes use of no-till planting methods and crop rotation to maximize water usage. He uses larger equipment to reduce manpower expenses as well as GPS technologies. Even his grain elevator serves efficiency purposes, allowing him to better market the crop. Paul says he's enjoyed some good years in farming, but it's those earliest, driest years that guide most of his decisions. Decisions that he and Monica hope will eventually provide opportunities for the 2 little farm hands, infant Elizabeth and Matthew, who is not quite a year and a half old.
The dry years always make you question and make you wonder the way that you're doing stuff, and the dry years also help to make you more efficient and maybe not stretch your neck out too far on equipment purchases or land purchases or anything. It makes you really appreciate the wet years, and it makes you be wise about the money that you spend. You can't afford to put all your money into every crop. And of course, having the CPA license and the accounting background, that helps me to track my dollars and get the most out of everything.
Paul's so smart. When it comes to finances and running a business, he's brilliant. He makes wonderful decisions. He's able to run reports on the finances, and aside from just planting a seed and growing it, he can see the big picture so well. And so I'm just in awe of everything that he comes up with.
Paul and Monica Minzenmeyer, the Outstanding Young Farmer Rancher finalist from Runnels County. Those words keep coming up, words that describe these 3 operations: diversity, sustainability, determination. Add to that list the words hope, opportunity, leadership, and vision. Don't blink, you'll miss the future arriving right in front of you. Standing on the home soil of these 3 outstanding young farmers and ranchers, you cannot escape the feeling of a bright future for Texas agriculture and Texas Farm Bureau. And the winner of this year's Outstanding Young Farmer Rancher of Texas was Stephen and Jennifer Diebel of Victoria County. Well, that's our show. Thanks for joining us. Some of you may think it's a little bit early for me to be cautioning you about this, but Texas, along with many other states, is still in the middle of a severe drought. So conserve water at every opportunity, and please always be careful with fire. For more information on these and other stories and agricultural information, visit us on the web at www.txfb.org. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you again next time.